Good morning, everyone. We are the Group 1, and we are assigned to report Chapter 2, which is all about the learning environment. So first, let's talk about the learner-centered environment. So what is a learner-centered environment? So a learner-centered environment is more than just providing information or teaching skills. So it also develops respectful relationships, recognizes that learners are experts in their own ways. It allows the learners in sharing or comparing their ideas or experiences within the group. It also creates a safe environment for the learners for changing behaviors, and lastly, engages the learners and is hands-on. So in order for us to achieve this learner-centered environment, teachers should avoid having lecture or demonstrational style activities. So instead, the teacher should give opportunities to the students, for example, having a participation that are centered to the learner. So in that case, the learners are given opportunities on how to make their own decisions or how to acquire those knowledge with their own solutions or with their own techniques. So in that way, it already shows that learner-centered environment is focusing on the aspects of the student. So it is not focusing the aspects of the teacher's side. Next, it is an educational approach that focuses on the participants' concerns and involves them in making decisions and solving problems. So as what I've said earlier, that students are the center of this environment, in which they have the responsibilities on how to acquire those knowledge or those skills or even those information with their own process or with their own solutions, with their own decisions, and etc. Next is in a learner-centered learning environment, the instructor should design ways to uncover the knowledge, skills, interests, attitudes, and beliefs of every learner. So we all know that there are multiple intelligences by Howard Gardner, and we are aware that each of the learner or of the students has a different or unique ways in acquiring the knowledge or the new information. So as a teacher in this 21st century, we should be flexible enough on how to address or cater the needs of our learners. So it is not all about the mastery of the subject matter, because what's the use of the mastery of the subject matter if you cannot get the attention of your students? So much better if you know how to get the interest of the students in order for them to learn, in order for them to find ways on how to acquire those knowledge or those skills that they need to acquire. Okay, so lastly, learner-centered instructors know that students are not blank slates. So which means they already have their own basic or foundation of knowledge based from their home or from the society. That a conceptual understanding or misunderstanding of a subject is based on what they bring with them, including the students' social and cultural traditions and experiences.
Okay, good morning everyone. So the next topic we are going to discuss for today is all about classroom management. So what actually is a classroom management? It is consists of techniques and attitudes wherein student and teacher have an interaction. So the teacher controls their classroom environment so that student learning prevails. So as a teacher, in order to teach, one must be able to manage the students under his or her authority. This basically means that once the teacher enters inside the classroom, he or she must have the authority, as it is the key element to establish a successful learning environment. And on the other hand, classroom management is an action-oriented and goal-oriented, which aims to create a successful learning environment and also to create an environment that supports and facilitates academic and social emotional learning. So it is not only to maintain order, but to optimize student learning in a way that students are encouraged and it is also in a way that they are establishing student self-control by promoting some positive student achievement and student behavior. So it also involves clear communication of behavioral and academic expectations. As what I have learned from our seminar from the past few weeks about classroom management, the speaker said that once you have the authority inside the class, it definitely lessen undesirable behavior of the students and you will be able to catch their attention. So this means that no matter how good, no matter how smart, or no matter how a potential teacher are you, if you are unable to control your students in a class, little learning will definitely take place. But looking in the positive side, or if we look in the other side, when a class is managed, it creates an environment wherein students are focused and there is a positive environment which creates growth in the classroom. So teachers need preventative, supportive, and corrective strategies to implement classroom management. So if we're going to look into it, when the classroom is managed, it ensures that students and the teacher are on the same page. So, therefore, to have a successful classroom environment, it should be well managed and there should be student involvement.
Let's proceed to the four components of classroom management. First is a classroom design. Classroom design is where, as a teacher, be intentional on how you set up your classroom. For example, as a teacher in a virtual classroom, you use a Google Meet as a tool to your synchronous class. So you set up your classroom by making the Google Meet scheduled on the calendar to be able the students to be reminded on their schedule and to be reminded if who is their teacher. Classroom design also involves how you manage your classroom, like how you design your classroom. For example, as a teacher, you prepare a presentation that whenever a students enter in the Google Meet, they will see any presentation that could probably engage them and then probably like make your classroom a conducive one. So the second one is the rules or discipline. Rules or discipline is implemented to be able the students to understand and hopefully respect. So rules should be implemented or make before the class is ended. It is agreed by both students and teachers. Rules will help the students to focus their goal and to improve their personality. Rules or discipline also help the teachers to organize their classroom. It will also help to create a boundaries within the teacher and students, because rules involve agreement on how should a teacher act in a classroom and how should a students act in a classroom, and it will also help to create a respect within each other. The third one is the scheduling or organization. As a teacher, it is important to be on time and to organize your tasks. It is important that you take considerations and you take importance to the time. Because for example, you make a lesson plan for your class tomorrow. And how will you implement all the activities in your lesson plan if you came in your class late, right? So it is important that as a teacher, be on time on entering your class. It is a part of a classroom management because it will help you to implement all the activities that you plan to be implemented well in your classroom. And it is important also to organize your tasks, because this will guide you on what to do first and what to do next, and it will help you to manage your classroom well. Last one is the instructional techniques. As a teacher, we have our own ways on how we teach our students. For example, you let your students do an activity individually, or you let your students do an activity together with their classmates. Like, for example, you assign them an open-ended projects where they will be able to share their ideas or express their opinions, creativeness on that project. And it is part also to the instructional techniques where you will able to offer praise to the students or offer reward to the students who is very participative in your class. And it is part also in the instructional techniques, for example, that you have a discussion and you encourage an engaging classroom where you will be able to let your students encourage to open initiatives and to share their ideas.
The role of teachers and learners. In students' life, teachers play a vital role. As a teacher, it is our job to bring out the best in our students and motivate them to achieve their full potentials. Students are seen as the nation's and humanity's future leaders, and also as a teacher, it's seen as a trustworthy guide for their development. Teachers are responsible for influencing a child's futures, making him or her a better human being. And also, in addition for that, teachers is the one who guide the students in academics and extracurricular activities. A teacher instills in students information, good values, tradition, contemporary issues, and resolutions to them. Students also benefit from a good teacher. Teachers have a variety of role in education, including number 1, sharing information or knowledge. First and foremost, a teacher's primary responsibility is to transfer knowledge, which is derived from teaching. Teaching usually requires adhering to a set of guidelines and ensuring that pupils or students comprehend what is being taught. All of a teacher's or other rules flow from this one, because if a teacher fails to fulfill his or her basic obligation of imparting knowledge, it may be impossible to have any other some kind influence on a child. To role modeling, despite the fact that instructor might not consider themselves to be a role models, they are. Teachers might have a certain amount of effect on pupils because of the amount of time they spend with them each day or week. It is now up to the teachers to determine whether or not this impact is beneficial. Being a teacher entails more than just following the curriculum. It is also requires grooming from the child. Teachers not only convey knowledge, but they are also assist in the development of character. Another role is being a parent or external parent. A teacher's job entails more than just sticking to a set of a lesson plan and working hours, because students and teachers spend so much time together. The teacher accidentally takes on the role of being an external parent. Teachers can act as mentors for students, guiding them in a proper direction. In this capacity, the teacher can motivate pupils to achieve their full potential while also serving as a source of inspiration and advice. Teachers function in the classroom. Society and the world at large has evolved from what is in the past, because teachers were given a precise curriculum to follow throughout the time, as well as the instruction on how to teach the curriculum. In today's environment, a teacher's job has expanded beyond that of a teacher. Counseling students, mentoring students, and teaching students how to use and apply knowledge in their lives are all part of their new job. Teachers are increasingly seeking for ways to have a greater impact on their students and perhaps encourage them to be and do more. The role of students, learners are the following. Number 1, contribution to class culture and accountability. Classroom rules should be agreed upon by each class. When students are given the opportunity to participate in the development of classroom rules, they are more inclined to keep each other accountable. Less teacher to student. Commands are more peer-to-peer course correction could be the result for a teacher. 2. Be inquisitive. Students should be encouraged to ask questions that engage their interest. This should be validated by teachers, who should allow students' input to affect experiential learning throughout the class, and everyone benefits from asking questions. Number 3. Participate in the discussions. Students should arrive at school ready to take part. Full participation increases learning opportunities and set the tone for the classroom. And also this includes the asking and answering questions, completing in-class assignments, and adhering the classroom norms on a regular basis. Accept personal responsibility. Students should be aware that they are members of a learning community at all times. Each person is responsible for taking responsibility for their actions in a way that they promote the creation of safety and positivity learning environments. Students' accountability promotes learning and aids in the improvement of academic performance and achievement. These possibilities can be created by you as a teacher. When students first enter the learning environment, they should be given tasks and obligations to fulfill. Allow students to express their preferences of role and responsibilities. Students' roles in the classroom are validated when they are invited to be as strategic partners in their learning. This builds confidence and character in them. Although teachers are ultimately in charge of classroom management, students also play a critical role. As a member of the classroom community, students have direct input on the organization and the learning climate. They work together to foster a learning, responsibility, and inclusionary culture. For everyone, that the goal of a teacher is to build students who can construct their own images rather than creating students in his image. Thank you and God bless.
Now, let's talk about the domains of learning. So, according to the original and the Bloom's Revised Taxonomy, there are three domains of learning. First, we have the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. But today, we uses the Bloom's Revised Taxonomy. So, this new taxonomy refers to more active form of thinking that is perhaps more accurate. And also, it is because we based this on what we want the learners to do, which is more congruent with the nature and the purpose of objectives. So, first, we have the cognitive domain. So, the cognitive domain usually involves with the knowledge and the development of intellectual skills. And under the cognitive domain, there are 6 categories. So, first we have the remembering. So, when we say remembering, it recalls previous learned information. So, some of the keywords used here in remembering are defines, describes, recite, recognizes, recalls, and more. So, like for example, recite a policy. So, in that way, you are remembering on what policy you need to recite. Next, we have the understanding. So, for the understanding, it is comprehending the meaning, the translation, the interpretation, or the interpolation of instructions and the problems. So, some keywords uses for this are comprehends, converts, rewrite, gives an example, predicts, and many more. So, like for example, rewrites the principles of the test writing, or explain in your own words the steps on how to solve an equation. So, those are examples on how to use understanding. Next, we have applying. So for applying, it uses a concept in a new situation or unprompted use of an abstraction. So in this case, usually the keyword used here or applies, changes, computes, construct, demonstrates, and others. So like for example, apply laws of statistics to evaluate the reliability of written tests. So these are things that are example on how you should apply in that certain things. Next, we have analyzing. So in analyzing, it separates material or concepts into components or parts so that its organizational structure may be understood or distinguished between the facts and the inference. So like for example, troubleshoot a piece of equipment by using logical deduction, or gathers information from a department and selects the required task for training. So in this way, you are analyzing on what are the problems of the equipment, or you are analyzing what are the tasks that is needed for the training. So some of the keywords used here in analyzing or analyzes, of course, compares, contrast, differentiates or discriminates, and more. Next, we have the evaluating. So in evaluating, we make judgments about the value of ideas or materials. So some of the keywords used here are appraises, compare, justify, describe, concludes, or evaluates, of course. So like for example, select the most effective solution, explain and justify a new budget, or hire the most qualified candidate. So in this way, you are evaluating about a thing so that you can come up with a result. And lastly, we have the creating. So in creating, it builds a structure or a pattern from diverse elements. So it puts parts together to form a whole with emphasis on creating a new meaning or structure. So some of the keywords used here are categorizes, combines, generates, explain, modify, recognizes, reconstruct, organizes, and of course creates. So like for example, design a machine to perform a specific task, or revises and process to make an annual income. So in this way, you are creating a thing so in order to perform a specific task, and also in order for that thing to function as a whole.
Okay, so now let's proceed to the affective domain of learning. The affective domain deals with the manner in which we deal things emotionally, such as feelings, emotions, enthusiasm, appreciation, values, and attitude. So when we take our learners through journey, we accept them to first receive the information and then to respond to it, and then to value the information being imparted, and then to organize their minds, and lastly to build their own characters. So now let's take a look at the subdivision of the affective domain. The first level is receiving. So at this level, the learners are expected to basically attend the learning session and be aware of what knowledge is being imparted, and be willing to hear or receive the information being imparted. So this level is a sort of just like the basic level. So the second level is responding. So you're doing more than just attending here. The learner is not just receiving the information but also responding to it. So at this level, the learner is not just receiving the information but also reacting to the knowledge being imparted. So the third level is valuing. It is where the advanced level starts from, because at this level, the learner is not just receiving the information or responding but also attaching some level of value. So at this level will attach value strongly associated with the topic and demonstrate commitment to the knowledge being imparted. So the learner will not just be receiving the information or responding to it, but also affecting the person emotionally. So the next level is organization. So this level, the learner have already received the information, respond to it, and value, will also be prioritizing or prioritize the different values being imparted and possibly resolve conflict. He or she will not just prioritizing the values being imparted, they would also emphasizing prioritization to the other person. So the final level is the characterization. So at this level, the learner will completely internalize his or her behavior, be predictable in his or her behavior, and let the value system control his or her behavior. So the learner here has progressed to a level where he or she has internalized the concepts or the knowledge being imparted. Okay, so let's have the psychomotor domain. So what does the psychomotor domain address? Basically, the psychomotor objectives are specific to physical functions or movements, reflex action, and body movements to interpret information and learnings. So I guess the word itself, psychomotor, gives us the hint that it has something to do with the motor functions of our body and is connected to psychology and learning process. So there are 7 subdivisions listed from the simplest behavior to the most complex. So the first level is perception or awareness. It is the most basic level of being able to process sensory information. For example, the things we see, hear, and smell, and respond to it accordingly. So this includes the ability to use sensory cues to guide motor activity. The second level is set. It is the readiness to act upon series of challenges. This includes physical and emotional sets. So this psychomotor subdivision is closely related to responding, which is the subdivision of the affective domain. So the third level is the guided response. It describes an early stage of learning when a complex task is first attempted. So this includes a trial and error method to resolve a situation. So the next level is mechanism. It is when we use preliminary or pre-existing skills to perform a task. So for example, students are able to answer exam questions after they have answered past questions. So it is easy for the students to answer the examinations if they have a prior knowledge about the questions given. So we have here the next level, which is the complex overt response. It is an expert level. So this means that one is able to consistently perform a task, and also the learners will predict the outcome. That is complex overt response. So the next level is adaptation. It is an integral part of the domain which exhibits the ability of the learners to modify learned skills to meet special events. So the final level is origination. It is creating new pattern movements to create or to fit a particular situation. It emphasizes productivity or creativity based upon highly developed skills. So for example, creating a new theory. So that is an example of origination. I guess that would be all for the domains of learning.
Okay, let's proceed. What are the 21st century ideal classroom? Just look to your screen. It was based to the idea or the conclusion of Wawasan Open University at Penang, Malaysia. Diba ang layo? So, change from the first column, it was belong to the 20th century. To change to the second column, it was belong to the 21st century. According to them, the teachers centered before first column won't accept the idea of the student, but today you need to accept the idea of the student. Second, the content coverage. The content coverage, you need to accomplish what is the content necessary to teach. In 21st century, not just a content, it includes the learning and doing. You need to impose some activity in order to the student can learn. In 21st century, not just lecturing the student, but in the class, you need to become the facilitator. In questioning, especially the exam, not just memorization and recall, you must develop the higher order thinking skills, the creating, evaluating, and analyzation. Yung mga question na, bakit, ano sa tingin mo, ano sa palagay mo. The interdisciplinary approach in 21st century ideal classroom, we need to connect our topic or our task in different subject because that is their mastery, okay? The 21st century ideal classroom, the classroom are more collaborative than isolated. In the first place, we need to arrange the setting arrangement through group arrangement, okay? The 21st century ideal classroom, in terms of assessment, they use the performance-based assessment. Ginagamit yung quiz test and assessment, but meron na itong performance-based assessment. Nandun yung mga portfolio, dramatization, at marami pa. The 21st century ideal classroom use multiple source of information including technology. In just one click, you can access a lot of book, not just a textbook, but a lot of information including the newspaper, magazine, even the news. The 21st century ideal classroom technology must be fully integrated inside the classroom. But here in Philippines, it is impossible to achieve because of lack of money. But still, it is an ideal 21st century classroom. In the 21st century ideal classroom, the teacher must addressing all the learning style of all the learners. The one-size-fits-all method are already dead. The students are unique. Every student are unique. And they have the different learning style. The 21st century ideal classroom teacher are look for the multiple answer from the student because it was student-centered and the idea of the student must be accepted. And aside from that, we are looking for the HATS, higher order thinking skills, not the lower order thinking skills. That's why we are looking for the multiple answer from the student, not the facts, not the yes or no, but their different idea.